Authorities in the U.S. have withdrawn a tsunami warning after an earthquake struck off the Pacific coast. The relatively shallow magnitude 7 quake struck about 70 kilometers off the coast of Northern California in a sparsely populated area. Roads in the states of California and Oregon became clogged with traffic as people attempted to flee further inland. The National Weather Service initially issued a tsunami warning that covered almost 5 million people, including the San Francisco area. That was before announcing that the coast was clear. And let's cross over to Matthew Cappucci, meteorologist and atmospheric scientist. He joins me now from Washington, D.C. Thanks for being on the show. The tsunami warning was issued because the epicenter of the earthquake was just off the coast of California, but then the wave never came. So do we know why not?
Yeah, so it has to do with how the actual slip of the earthquake took place. This earthquake was about 70 kilometers offshore of Northern California, a magnitude 7, so it's a pretty hefty earthquake. But we know there was something called a strike-slip earthquake, basically lateral motion on something called the Mendocino fracture zone. So basically like a little strip where two plates are moving past each other. So that's where it happened. That's why, there's side-to-side motion, but not really much up and down. And you need the up and down to generate a tsunami. But the interesting part of this particular earthquake was that it was near a series of different faults. We call that the Mendocino Triple Junction. And so this earthquake wasn't really a bad one, wasn't really an impactful one, but it's near the Cascadia subduction zone where a bigger plate goes underneath North America. The Juan de Fuca plate goes underneath North America. That's overdue for a megathrust quake, which could cause a tsunami well down the road. And it's also near the San Andreas Fault. So even though today's situation wasn't very impactful, the question is if stress that was released from this earthquake added stress elsewhere that could impact either of those faults.
But there was an earthquake that was felt by people, even if there wasn't a big wave that came. So did that cause any damage there?
For the most part, no, not too much. We're really fortunate that this was in Northern California, offshore of Eureka, and it's kind of sparsely populated there. The other thing, too, the rock out there has so many active faults, and all these faults kind of crunch together, and the crunchiness of the faults does a better job of dispersing earthquake energy. So, on the East Coast, if you had an earthquake, it'd go very far and impact a lot of people. On the West Coast, this same earthquake didn't impact as many people as far away because you had more of that energy sort of dispersed by the crunchiness of the faults. Still in Northern California, they had some shaking. They're still having earthquakes and aftershocks right now, but it was not as severe an event as it could have been.
Okay, so crunchy faults are a good thing in this case. You referred to this earlier, the big one, as scientists sometimes call it. They expect a major earthquake in California. They've been expecting that for a while now. How can you predict something like this, and is it overdue now?
It is overdue, but the issue is we can predict it on the order of hundreds of years, which isn't necessarily helpful for people who are living there. We know that at some point, probably in my lifetime, I'm 27 right now, probably in my lifetime, or at least my kids' lifetime, there will be a significant megathrust earthquake offshore of the Pacific Northwest or Northern California. A megathrust is when that dense oceanic plate, the Juan de Fuca plate, subducts or goes underneath the North American plate. And in doing so, that will cause the seafloor to move up and down up and down vertically like this, and that would probably trigger a pretty significant tsunami in addition to serious shaking at the coastline. However, we can't offer any more specifics. These plates might only move, say, a couple centimeters per year, but that's adding a lot of stress and a lot of stress. When a rupture takes place, when that stress is released, we can't exactly be sure. So it's a game of centimeters, but over the course of years and years and years, and everybody's kind of waiting and watching and holding their breath.
And some people look at the smaller quakes like this as a kind of dress rehearsal. Did they pass the test this time? Does it look like California is prepared for something bigger?
California has a very advanced earthquake early warning system to the point where trains will stop ahead of time. People get something called Shake Alert on their phone, which notifies them with an emergency wireless alert, basically saying, hey, earthquake shaking in like 10 seconds. So the system works. People got the message. The emergency alert system went off. The issue that we're seeing, and this is a sort of a social science issue, is that even if people get a warning, they go elsewhere to confirm before taking action. They go on social media, they turn on the TV, and they sort of waste these extra minutes trying to get a second opinion before they take action. So it's imperative people just heed the warning, do it right then without getting a second opinion.
Okay, meteorologist Matthew Cappucci, thank you very much.
Thank you.